fraternity at the University of Virginia, which was the subject of a super questionable and incorrect Rolling Stone piece about campus rape, has settled a defamation lawsuit with Rolling Stone to the tune of $1.65 million. Now, this, of course, had to do with the Virginia Alpha chapter of Phi Kappa Psi. That was a fraternity that was written about in the article, and it alleged that there was a gang rape of a female student who went by the name of Jackie. The issue with the piece was that the writer did not talk to anyone except for Jackie, the woman who alleged that she had been gang raped by this fraternity. And so when the story came out, there were a number of people, including the alleged victim's friends, who came out and said, this is not true. And at that point, Rolling Stone had to retract their piece, and of course, they faced some defamation lawsuits because they, ruined the reputations of individuals who were part of this reporting. The Virginia Alpha chapter of Phi Kappa Psi fraternity has agreed to settle and dismiss its defamation lawsuit against Rolling Stone and Sabrina Erdely, that is the writer, of course, arising from the magazine's publication of the November 2014 article, "A Rape on Campus, a Brutal Assault and Struggle for Justice at UVA," the fraternity said in a statement. Now, the magazine also settled another lawsuit earlier this year with a former University of Virginia Associate Dean, Nicole Aramo, who claimed she was defamed by the story as well. Now, the article claimed that she didn't take the accusation seriously. There wasn't a proper investigation done, and so rightfully so, she went after Rolling Stone for defamation, and they settled the case as well. Now, even though I completely agree that Rolling Stone did not do the right thing, and that was incredibly unethical and irresponsible journalism, I didn't want that one story to destroy the publication, because Rolling Stone, has really great writers, including Matt Taibbi, and I just didn't want to see the entire, publication go down the drain because of the irresponsible behavior of, a few editors and a writer. So I'm happy to see that the settlement is not. It doesn't seem like it's going to break the bank for them. $1.65 million.
I don't know. I mean, diving into this, the Columbia Journalism Review did a really good sort of play-by-play of exactly what went wrong, and it's really frustrating to read through because it calls into question. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it gave them license to question the testimony of sexual assault victims, and that's what is so heartbreaking about this. And I think that the people at Rolling Stone, the editors behind it, and the writer themselves have all acknowledged that. I mean, it's the implications, the ramifications of this story are so tragic, just beyond this falsehood. And I know what they were doing. They were acting in deference to try and respect who they thought who had presented themselves as a sexual assault victim.
Right.
And I understand that. And it's one of those things where you have to question, okay, if I were in these shoes, what would I do? Because you have this person who's saying, I'm a victim, please don't reach out to these people. And then down the line, after the story's already in the pipeline, ready to be published, then some questions come up where she can't really remember the spelling of the person that she's saying instigated the whole event. That's really fishy, but what do you do? The story's already going to be published. It's possible that she's forgetting some details. It's just all of this snowballed into something that really is, the effects I think we're still seeing today, because whenever we cover a story, I know even on this channel, about rape or sexual assault, there are a lot of people that will cite statistics, bogus statistics, like, yeah, most people are faking it anyway. Look at the UVA case.
Exactly.
Most people are lying anyway.
You don't want to give those people fodder, and unfortunately,
and that's what this did.
It's consequences 101 for this, as we've said many times. You don't want to, I guess, poison the field for when it really has happened. Because even before any kind of false allegations even arise, there's already a suppression of victims of rape already, just because we have this society that wants to demonize someone who was a victim of a crime like this already for some reason. There's plenty of reasons, and we know those. But then after it's all said and done, it still ends up, this is what struck me in this as well. The author, or the journalist for this, who I was wanting to see what happened to her. She kind of like, I figured she went away, she working anywhere ever again. When it comes to consequences for Rolling Stone, what happens to her as well as her career? And she was forced to go in hiding or receiving threats, of course. I wonder which kind of threat she received as a woman. So even after it's all said and done and you're in the wrong, from Rolling Stone to the writer of the piece, then she still gets the same threats that lead to things that she was writing about in the first place. So both sides end up having to recreate the bad sides of this whole thing. But when it comes to false allegations or when it comes to shooting death threats at a woman just because she's a woman, and I wouldn't want to see the kinds of threats that she received from this.
And I think that she was very close to this. She got very close with Jackie. They spoke a number of times, they met a number of times. So I also think that it's important to call out her editors who were less close to look at this as fact checkers and be like, okay, she says this, can we double check this? Can we go make sure that he was a lifeguard at this point in time? I need to look at this objectively. You know, you have to look, to a certain level, you have to be a little bit cold about it, a little bit cold and callous and cynical that maybe she's lying. And I think that her editors didn't really do that job because and I don't think it's wrong to treat people who say that they have been sexually assaulted respectfully and to treat them, I don't know, it's a delicate situation, but someone should have been fact checking along the way.
I absolutely agree with you. And I would argue that it's even more cold and callous to depict this bleak, criminal picture of innocent individuals, right? And that's essentially what happened with this piece, which is why it's so incredibly important to not rely on one source and one source only for a piece. You have to corroborate it. And that pertains to every type of story. If someone is leaking something to you, right? You can't just simply rely on what that one leaker says. And I know a lot of publications, New York Times, a lot of established publications make sure that they corroborate what that source is saying before they publish the piece, because anyone can say anything, and if you just take that for face value or at face value when you publish it, well, it's not ethical or responsible journalism. And look, I think that this story, the fact that the settlement came about today is really interesting to me because it made me kind of go back in time, 2014, when this was a big story. And it made me realize that journalism as a whole has devolved so much, even in the short period of time since this entire thing blew up, right? You see all sorts of defamatory stuff in the media about anyone, right? About any politician, about anyone who's in the news or who's in the headlines at that moment. You see a bunch of so-called journalists trying to make the story about them because they're trying to make a name for themselves, as opposed to actually just reporting the facts, right? And instead of pushing their agenda, they should be focusing on stories that matter to the American public so they can be well-informed, participants of a democratic system. And we've moved so far away from that. And it's not just television media, it's not just establishment media, it's media in general now. It doesn't matter if you're in digital media or television or print. I see dishonest actors everywhere. And it's just really devastating to me because, I realize that, if you're a public figure, your reputation is not in your hands anymore, okay? Your reputation is in the hands of everyone else who decide what the narrative is, who decide what type of person you are, who decide to cover you in any way they decide to cover you, right? And that's the worst part about it, because it doesn't matter if you're a good person, doesn't matter if you have the best intentions. I mean, look what happened today with Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders is getting blamed for a shooting at a congressional baseball practice. And he has never once condoned violence. He has never once encouraged or incited violence. But other people get to draw this narrative of him, and it's irresponsible behavior.
We're already in our corners. And I think John tweeted it today when he said these type of things allow people to cobble in their corners, and then once they're there, they use it for their own perspective and their own angle to prove that their corner is the best corner. And no one's ever going to speak.
Yeah, and we rely on journalists to be the watchdogs for this. And going with the dog analogy, because I love dogs, it was sort of like Rolling Stone got caught chasing their own tail.
Yeah.
What's in TYT membership? Not going to tell you. Only one way to find out. TYTnetwork.com/join.